It's not clear where you stand between those two issues, and what do you mean by us and you? And you do use the word you a lot. So it's interesting for me, listening to you, where I stand. Where do I stand in this you-ness that you're referring to? What can you do, or what do we do to inspire the people of our country to move forward? We are talking about a brand. There is no us and them here. We are all different. Trying to say that this is Indian and white and black and Chinese and so forth is not helping us move forward. It hasn't helped us. I want to know what our brand is collectively, but what is it? What is our brand moving forward?
And I say, no, there's no us. There's no us. We are fighting to have us. As things stand now, and it's not Malema's problem, it's an apartheid colonialist problem. They divided us. They reserved jobs for you. They reserved economic opportunities for you. 1994 did not dismantle the legacy of colonialism and apartheid. That's why Mr. Santa says there is still an economic apartheid. So in apartheid means we are apart. There's them and us. Deny it. The reality is there's them and us. I want Santin and Alexander to be one thing. To be one thing. But they will never be one thing because Alexandra is for the blacks and Santin is for the white minority. The haves and the have-nots are subjected to that congestion in Alexander. So we will never address the issue of racial division if we do not agree and speak to the reality that we are divided because ownership is racially divided. So I'm not taking any dignity away from anyone. My sister, you have a dignity. We also want our dignity back. We have no dignity. We walk like we are ashamed to be here. Especially now at night. We do not enjoy the streets of Cape Town. Because we know that we are made to feel like we do not belong here. As we walk, we are treated like we are suspects in our own country. So we are not going to be coming here and saying to you, we are nice, we are enjoying it. We are not enjoying anything. We are not enjoying anything. We are still subjects of an exploitation in this country. And exactly this attitude of denialism is the one that perpetuates apartheid. Economic apartheid we have is because you are in denial. No, there's... No, it's good. The emotions must be high because that's what truth does to people. It gets their emotions very high.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Santo, you want to respond to that? And then we've got a question at the back, and then we've got a question here.
Okay. Look, I just want to say, and I really want to say this, that a function like this shows the good side of South Africa. We're at least talking to each other, and it's a start. So, you know, just get used to that idea.
Thank you very much. Donovan, do you have a question at the back?
Yep. It means, in my ancestral language, our struggle continues. Mr. Malema, you have no authority to talk about land ownership. The Khoisan is the only authentic voice that can talk about land. We were the first freedom fighters fighting the colonials when they came here 360 years ago. We were the first people of this nation. We were the first people of Southern Africa. And today we still face oppression. This country's history did not start in 1910 when the ANC was established. Nor did it start in 1994 when you went to a democratic dispensation. We lived here, and you, your ancestors, and the white ancestors found us here. So we can only talk about land ownership as you found us here. The indigenous people of South Africa and Southern Africa needs to be restored. That was taken from them by the invaders. I thank you.
I'm not sure there was a question there. If there was a statement, would you like to answer?
Well, I think that you are extremely missing a point. Me and you are Africans. And this land you are referring to and the whole of Africa was one thing until the colonialists came to divide us. So you must never see yourself as being something different from what I am. Otherwise, you are inviting self-isolation. We, the black African majority and the Khoisan, were one thing. And we are the only ones who can speak with authority about the Africa, the continent of African majority. So don't take away, I'm not from Europe. My ancestors are not from Europe. This Africa belongs to Africans, and that's what the Khoisan are. Don't isolate yourself, my sister. This solidarity will help us to defeat colonialist and apartheid legacy.
Thank you very much. We've just got time for 2 more questions. I'm taking 1 question here and 1 question down there.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Vuisa Kabaka. I've just got 2 quick questions from the CIC and Mr. Santa. First of all, Mr. Santa, I just want to fundamentally disagree with you around the ability of South Africans to start businesses. You made a couple of examples. And what I'm going to premise my question around is the whole point around economic infrastructure investment in townships in South Africa and the lack thereof in the last 20-odd years in South Africa. So I just want to ask you, what is your take around the inability of the current ruling party to invest in economic infrastructure to enable and unlock? Because again, poverty in South Africa sits in the townships of this country, and yet that's where we're not creating infrastructure for economic enablement. For the CIC, I just want to say that those who feel it know it in Cape Town. So I do agree with you around some of the sentiments you've already made, but specifically to ask you to comment around 3 core areas that you have not specifically spoken to. One is the economic CODESA that Mr. Santa speaks of. Your take on the economic CODESA in the context of what you've spoken about today around those who are enabled and who've had centuries old of enablement in the context of economic CODESA, the National Development Plan, and the context of what the EFF speaks to around the National Economic Development Plan, and lastly, the fictitious black middle class that we all speak about, that is again fundamentally funded through state-owned infrastructure, whether it's government agencies, it's government companies, or it's government itself, that's creating this fictitious black middle class. I want to hear your comments around that.
Thank you very much.
On the question of entrepreneurs in the township, I have to say that we haven't really started trying to integrate some of the and I would say there are some brilliant entrepreneurs in the township, but they haven't made it because we have made no attempt to integrate the township economies into the mainstream economy in this country. And that's why Mr. Malema was right that I talk about economic apartheid that we still have in South Africa. And we've got to break down those barriers because this is daily life. As I said, you vote every 5 years, but you live life daily in the economy, and we haven't done anything. And you're quite right. We haven't got the economic infrastructure, and it is, I don't know why, I'm not sure that it's lack of passion about what entrepreneurs can do. Because, as I said, if you look around the world, the people who change your lives are the ones that come up with new products, which, because of technology or whatever, assist us in living better. And I just want to make it so much easier so that those people, and there are plenty in South Africa, can actually have the confidence as well as the financial support and, of course, the open market, and not actually be dominated by big businesses trying to make their prices cheaper and put them out of business. That's why I'm talking about an economic CODESA, because we simply can't go on like this, because we are one of the most unequal societies in the world. And yeah, I don't think we've even started in terms of creating the proper economic infrastructure in the townships for entrepreneurs that can do business everywhere in South Africa.
Thanks. I think we are in agreement about the economic CODESA. We needed to discuss about the land and how that land can be transferred to all. We needed to also discuss the worker share schemes. We need the economic CODESA to also deal with localization. Lot of chain stores in the country do not even buy local products. I mean, textile industry used to be something very big, especially here in Cape Town. But it's no longer that big because it has been undermined by cheap products which are brought into the country and sold by some of these chain stores. So how do we buy locally? How do we protect the local industries? And also, we need to discuss, Mr. Santa, about the minimum wage so that we close the wage gap, the apartheid wage gap, the minimum wage, and whether indeed through such intervention we will be in a position to help grow the economy. And the decisions of the economic CODESA, they have to be binding. They must bind, and then those are the decisions which will inform ultimately legislation and policy which is to be adopted by the state. So it is important that we have that a conversation. And I think we'll have that conversation because this is how it starts. It starts with us. And once we reach consensus through these types of engagement, then we say, how do we formalize some of this consensus that we are reaching through the continuous dialogue that we are having. But if we were to go to an economic CODESA when we are still far from each other, it will not be a very productive CODESA. We ought to genuinely liberate the mindset of our people and win them over so that they begin to appreciate that it is through genuine, legitimate economic freedom that our people will realize true freedom. The black middle class needs to be politically conscientized and it needs to be politicized because sometimes they confuse being credit-worthy with being rich. They do not know the difference. And that's where the banks want them to think that by affording to rent in the suburbs here, what is that expensive one there? Whatever the names. So once they qualify to rent, they think, no, I've arrived. Most of the black middle class found in the white suburbs do not own those properties. They rent them. So they are credit worthy. And being credit worthy means you are a slave of capital for the rest of your life. And you are not going to leave your children any legacy. People are inheriting farms here. Your children are not going to inherit anything, because for the rest of your life, you have been renting properties. And the NDP is just a reputation of gear. And the NDP says very little about the land question. If you do not address the land question, you have not addressed the fundamentals. You are still playing. You had to confront the elephant in the room. And that elephant is land ownership.
Thank you very much. Mr. Santi, you want to comment?